My name is Daniel, and for most of my life, I have believed that friendships, true ones, are unshakable. James was proof of that belief. We met in college, two young men bound more by circumstance than similarity, and yet, over the years, we became inseparable. He was the kind of man who radiated ease, tall, broad-shouldered, effortlessly charming. His smile had always disarmed people, but it was his steadiness that kept me close. James never judged, never questioned, and in that silence, I felt safe to be myself, openly, unapologetically, and fully gay. James had been married to Emily for 3 years. Their relationship was stable, the kind others admired, and I was often reminded by mutual friends how lucky they were to have each other. I admired them too, though not without a quiet, unspoken pang that caught me off guard when I was around them. I told myself it was only envy of the simplicity of their love, not desire for what I could never have done. On a late summer evening, James invited me over. The air carried the sticky warmth of the season, and the smell of cut grass drifted in through his open windows. He was sprawled across the couch, shirtless, holding a beer, looking restless. "Danny," he said with his easy grin, "I've got a favor to ask." "A weird one." I laughed, leaning against the doorway. "From you, that could mean anything." He scratched the back of his neck, almost sheepishly. "Emily hates the hair on my back. She says it makes me look like a gorilla. She tried shaving it once, but it freaked her out. I can't reach half of it myself, and I'm not about to walk into a salon and ask a stranger. You think you could help me out?" I stared at him, momentarily thrown. It wasn't that the request was outrageous, but it was undeniably intimate. I tried to mask my hesitation with humor. "So, you want me to play barber now?" "Come on," James said, laughing, "you're my best friend. Who else am I gonna ask? I promise I won't make it weird." That last line, meant as reassurance, landed differently. Something stirred in me, something I immediately tried to suppress. It was only a favor, an act of trust between friends. Nothing more. He disappeared into the bathroom and returned with an electric razor, shaving cream, and a towel. Watching him gather the items so casually, I realized how little he considered the weight of the request. For him, this was practical. For me, it was a test of control. We set up in his living room, the hum of the razor filling the silence as I began. My hands moved carefully, grazing the warmth of his skin. The hair came off in neat strips, revealing smoothness beneath. He cracked jokes to ease the awkwardness, but I barely registered them. I was too aware of the closeness, of the way his muscles shifted under my touch. "Feels weird, doesn't it?" James asked, glancing back over his shoulder. "Not weird," I replied quickly, maybe too quickly. "Just, different." He chuckled, turning his head forward again. "You're taking it more seriously than I expected. I figured you'd make fun of me." "I don't want to mess it up," I said, though what I really meant was, I don't want to mess us up. The task took longer than I imagined. Each pass of the razor felt like a line crossed, not visible to him but undeniable to me. The intimacy of it lodged in my chest, a pressure that was equal parts thrill and dread. At last, I moved to his shoulders, the final patches to be smoothed away. The razor's buzz quieted as I clicked it off, the room suddenly too silent. James looked at me in the mirror across from us, his eyes catching mine. His smile softened into something unreadable. "You did good," he said, his voice lower now, almost thoughtful. "Better than I expected." The air between us seemed to shift, heavy with an unspoken awareness. I felt my pulse quicken, though I forced myself to nod casually, to step back and put distance where closeness had lingered too long, but his gaze held me a moment longer in the reflection, steady, almost searching, before he looked away, and in that glance, fleeting yet sharp, I knew something had changed. The razor lay silent on the coffee table, its faint hum still echoing in my ears. James pulled his shirt back on, but the casual air from earlier had vanished. Something in his eyes lingered, as though the simple act of shaving had revealed more than smooth skin. I wanted to believe I imagined it, that my own feelings had painted meaning where none existed, yet the heaviness in the room refused to lift. James broke the silence first, leaning against the counter with a beer in hand. You're really precise, you know that. Like, you cared about getting it right. I shrugged, trying to sound detached. I didn't want to botch it. Imagine you showing up on vacation looking like I carved a map on your back. He laughed, but it wasn't the easy, unbothered laugh I knew so well. It was shorter, edged with something unspoken. He took a sip, then fixed me with a glance that seemed too intent. You ever think people are more comfortable with their friends than with their partners? Like, asking them for things they can't even ask the person they're married to? The question caught me off guard. I shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to answer. I guess trust works differently in different relationships. Exactly, he said, his tone sharper than before. With you, I don't feel judged. Emily would have made it a big deal. You just did it. His words stirred something dangerous inside me. I reminded myself of the invisible boundary, the loyalty I owed both him and his wife. But loyalty felt fragile in that moment, flimsy against the pull of his presence. The conversation drifted, yet every word seemed charged. James spoke about his marriage lightly, but there was a hesitation, an almost imperceptible crack beneath his stories. I listened, torn between sympathy and the undeniable awareness that we were standing too close, saying too much. At one point, his hand brushed mine as he passed me the beer. It was nothing, ordinary, fleeting, but the warmth of that touch lingered longer than it should. I noticed he didn't pull away immediately. Instead, his eyes flicked to mine, a silent acknowledgement neither of us dared put into words. You ever wonder, he began slowly, what it would feel like to cross a line you've never even thought about crossing? My breath caught. The room seemed smaller, the air thicker. I forced a smile, though my chest tightened. That depends on the line. The kind you don't admit out loud, he said, his voice almost a whisper. We stood in silence, the weight of the moment pressing down. I wanted to move, to break the spell, but I couldn't. My body betrayed me, rooted in place, every nerve alive with expectation. Then, it happened, subtle, almost tentative. James leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine, his expression uncertain. The space between us dissolved. I should have stepped back, should have reminded him of Emily, of what we both risked. But I didn't. I let the closeness happen. His lips brushed mine, brief yet searing. It was not passion, not yet, it was testing, questioning, daring. My pulse thundered in my ears. I pulled back, breathless, the reality crashing in. James, I whispered, my voice strained, you're married. I know, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just needed to know what it felt like. The honesty in his tone unsettled me more than the kiss itself. It wasn't casual curiosity. It was confession, raw and trembling. That I should have walked out then. Instead, I stayed, paralyzed by equal parts guilt and desire. We didn't kiss again, but the silence afterward was heavier than any words could be. When I finally stood to leave, James caught my wrist gently. Don't overthink this, Danny. It doesn't have to mean anything. I nodded, though my heart screamed otherwise. Because in that moment, I knew it already meant everything. The following morning, sunlight streamed through James's kitchen window, spilling across the table where I sat nursing a cup of coffee. James moved about with his usual casual ease, frying eggs, humming to himself as though the night before hadn't shifted the ground beneath us. I studied him carefully, looking for cracks, hesitation in his eyes, guilt in his posture, but there was none. He was James, steady and unbothered. And yet, for me, everything had changed. Emily entered, cheerful and oblivious, pressing a kiss to James's cheek before greeting me warmly. Morning, Danny. Did he rope you into one of his weird projects again? She teased, pouring herself juice that I forced a smile. Something like that. Her trust was a blade twisting inside me. She moved about the room, unaware that her husband's lips had touched mine only hours earlier, unaware of the new silence that now pulsed between James and me. I envied her ignorance. James played his part seamlessly, laughing, joking, asking Emily about her work schedule. I watched the ease with which he returned to normal, and it unsettled me. Did last night mean so little to him? Or was his composure another mask, perfected through years of marriage? When Emily left for work, the house grew quieter. James leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee, his expression unreadable. You okay? He asked. No, I admitted, my voice sharper than intended. You kissed me, James. You can't just act like nothing happened. He exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple. I know. And I'm not proud of it. But it happened, and we need to put it away. I love Emily. Last night, it was curiosity. That's all. Curiosity. The word stung. For me, it had been a lightning strike, an affirmation of feelings I had buried for years. For him, it was an experiment, a fleeting indulgence to be discarded with the morning light. Still, his voice wavered as he spoke, betraying the certainty his words tried to project. He was torn, though he would never say it outright. And I was left to navigate the wreckage of emotions he had unleashed. That we sat in silence, the kind that binds more tightly than conversation. I wanted to confront him, to demand clarity, but I also feared the answers. Was I just a convenient secret, a safe outlet because Emily trusted me implicitly? Or had that moment meant something deeper, something he couldn't yet admit even to himself? Days passed, but the memory lingered. Whenever we were together, it hovered in the air, the glance held too long, the silence stretched too wide, the tension simmering beneath our laughter. Outwardly, nothing changed. We were still friends, still inseparable. But beneath the surface, we carried a secret heavier than either of us could name. Emily continued to welcome me into their home, her kindness amplifying my guilt. Each smile from her was a reminder of the betrayal I now carried, silent and corrosive. I began to realize that infidelity was not just about bodies, it was about secrets, about the quiet fractures that form when loyalty falters. One evening, as James and I sat alone on his porch, he broke the silence with a question that caught me off guard. Do you regret it? I hesitated, staring at the fading light. I regret what it means, I said softly. But not what it felt like. His jaw tightened, and he looked away. That's the problem. It felt real. Too real. And that's why it can't happen again. I nodded, though part of me ached at his certainty. Yet another part understood. What existed between us was dangerous, a spark capable of burning everything we both held dear. As I left that night, I realized the truth. Sometimes betrayal doesn't come with grand affairs or prolonged deceit. Sometimes it begins in a single, stolen moment, a kiss born of curiosity and need, that reshapes everything, and though we vowed never to cross that line again, I knew the secret would remain between us, pulsing like a hidden scar. Because once a boundary is crossed, even just once, nothing is ever truly the same.